Hello, hello. Test, testing, testing.
planned on was, if there's any questions, I'll run the microphone like I did at Canterbury Court. I'll repeat the question, and then I will tell who I think should answer it. Like Perkins and Will should answer this, or maybe you should answer it, or I'll answer it.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started just now, so I do encourage you to find a seat. There are seats scattered about. And Marcia, could you just help by closing the doors there? Thank you. Sorry, I know you're in midstream there. Well, delighted that we can be here together, and a warm welcome to folks joining us online, or if you're watching this as a recording later on. And just as a reminder, if you're seeing this later on, or you had a question today, or anything that we're all different process morning, and you're always welcome to reach out to me, and I can direct you as needed. So you're going to see some slides behind you, going to have a number of folks chat with you this morning. We'll dive right in. We'll just wait a couple of minutes here as folks can come in. I was going to say there's seats at the front, but this is probably the first time in history there are no seats at the front. It's an Episcopal church, I thought. Well, let's get started if we can. So that's our agenda for this morning. We're going to begin with some introductions. You'll see a master plan and background of the project, where we are today, some of the research, and the next steps. Let me come to the side here so you can all see. So I wanted to introduce you to members they've got a couple of committees at work. The committee on the screen here is the Block Development Steering Committee. That is a group of people that will be working on this in partnership with the vestry for the next several years. The execution of the master plan, at least we'll see where we are in about 4 years from now, hard to know. But they represent a range of gifts in the parish, experiences, professional background. You've got folks who are involved in our governance from a finance perspective, from our Buildings and Grounds Committee, and you'll see from real estate law to design to strategy, engineering, architecture, development, all sorts of different areas of expertise. We're very grateful to each of these people for saying yes to All Saints. It gets to be work that is, it's hard for the vestry to catch up with it year by year, and they do a very good job of that. But this group is going to allow us to be our sort of brain trust, to keep focus on this work, not just for the first phase of the master plan, is what our focus is right now on this corner of Ponce and West Peachtree, but also thinking about the future of the project, which I'll talk about in a little while, over in the southwest corner, to all sorts of different issues, perhaps including air rights and any other element of the life on this block. So that group will be around for a good while working on this project. The next slide will show us the task force that is working on this first phase of the project. We're calling the Eggleston Task Force. So again, a group of parishioners with a range of skills and gifts, both within the parish and in their professional lives, helping us think about this particular task, and we'll look at a time a little later on what will show you when their work comes to a close. You'll see that Sheldon Taylor's being punished for something because he's on both of these. He chairs the Block Development Committee and is here on this task force as a liaison between the two, and of course is also our treasurer, and so is there on the vestry. We've got a number of vestry members also on this task force. So on the next slide, it's an opportunity. Am I handing over here to say, so we've got the great gift of working with North Ave, and I'm going to invite Alex to come over and introduce himself.
Thank you, Simon. My name is Alex Domestahas, and I'm here with my colleague Shannon Stein, and represent a company called North Avenue Partners. We go by North Ave for short. That is a head nod to Georgia Tech down the street where I went and my business partner went, North Avenue Trade School for those that don't know. We're really excited and honored to be here. We are project managers at heart, and what that means is we facilitate the process. We quarterback the process of a project all the way from the very beginning stages through the very end stages, and it goes a lot into that. I've been a project manager for 20 years. Shannon is about 25 years, and we've done all sorts of projects, all shapes and sizes, and at the end of the day, projects are a people business, and that's where we really pride ourselves on doing well, is working with all sorts of different people, helping different teams get to where they want to belong. So thank you for having me. I will introduce Perkins and Will next. One of the first things I had to do when I joined this team was go through a selection process to get a design firm. And so we did a lengthy request for proposal exercise, received multiple proposals, lots of really great engagement from around the community, interviewed 4 different firms, and the Eggleton Task Force selected Perkins and Will as your architect for this project. So I'm very excited to introduce Perkins and Will.
Good morning. I'm Nicole Sheffield. I lead our workplace practice in Perkins and Will. I'm not sure if any of you remember, but there is a Perkins and Will acquired Nix Mann and Associates back in 2005. So not sure if you know of Henry Mann and Lewis Nix, but they brought Perkins and Will to life as Atlanta. So we're excited to be here. We are a group of designers, architects. You're seeing here some of our practice areas, but we're thrilled to be a part of this project and this process. We're your neighbor right up the street, so thank you so much for allowing us to come here and be a part of this process.
So I'm going to spend a few minutes to talk about the master plan and the process that got us here. Some of you will remember all of this. Some of you will have a vague memory. Some of you have joined All Saints. A number of people have joined All Saints, certainly since we began this. But the beginning, really, other than the story of this parish, is 2016, I think it was, when an opportunity arose to purchase the last parcels of the block, which has been over a century in the making, as All Saints has spread its footprint to take, for the first time, control and ownership of the whole city block. That enabled us then to ask the question, what do we want to be in the future, not just the next 3 years, but the next 30 and 40 years? How can we shape this block intentionally for the first time? And then in 2018, right at the end of 2018, we formed a committee that was wanting to ask that question, a steering committee for the future of our block. We spent a year studying the neighborhood around us, this rapidly changing Midtown neighborhood. We talked to partners such as Emory and Tech. We interviewed, I think, nearly 100 social service agencies, lots of due diligence, setting ourselves up in the spring of 2020 to engage the parish. And then the pandemic happened and everything went on pause, and we picked that up again. This offers you some of the work that happens, some of it behind the scenes, working with experts such as in the technical assistant panel report, a series of land use professionals who helped us continue to think about the block, some of our strategic planning work with the vestry, and as you get closer to 2025, ultimately culminating in the master plan that we have for the campus. And I just want to raise up, there may be an additional slide there may not be. There it is. And so that is in my last assistant, Pat Kiley, who many of you knew and loved, used to say to me, Simon, nobody's going to care about this more than you, whatever it happened to be. And so, I might live and breathe this, but you carry on with your lives. And so that master plan, the hard copy there is our sort of external document. There's a more detailed version that the vestry work off and so on. But that gives you all that you'd need to know about the master plan. I just want to raise up a few pieces of that. We did some long-term modeling for the future of this church that we hold dear and value highly. And I sent a message last week, I think it was, offering the detail that we grew in our pledged income and our membership and our average Sunday attendance from last year to this year, or from previous year to last year, which is wonderful, great news. But if we're interested in 20 and 30, in decades rather than years, 20 and 30 years from now, when we model into the future, we recognize that it is in All Saints' best interest for its long-term sustainability to identify a significant new source of revenue for the church. And thankfully, the decision that was made back in whenever it was to not join the trend and flee to the suburbs, All Saints stayed. Turned out that was a good real estate investment in staying at All Saints because, of course, this has become a very desirable part of the city, lots of development. So our land has become a significant asset. There's no desire or intention to sell the land, but it does offer us an opportunity to enter into some sort of long-term land lease that would allow us to generate a new source of income over that long term. We're not in a rush for that to happen. There's no crisis for us to avert, but that long-term thinking allows us to be ready to act when the time is right. And that's what that block development committee has in part their eye upon. When might the time be right? And we're having ongoing conversations as we move forward about that. But to be ready for that to happen, we needed to move our core ministries up into this corner of the block behind me here on West Peachtree and Ponce. As you know, there's been building activity around us in the neighborhood, and unfortunately, which you'll hear more about in April, the Eggleston building suffered significant structural damage. And if you ever want a horror tour, please reach out to me and I'll walk you around Eggleston. And you can say, I used to say that eventually Ellen Hayes will fall out of her office, but you could roll a tennis ball in various directions depending where you are inside it. So significant damage. And you put those two pieces together. That's why we have an Eggleston task force to look at how we might open this second front door to the life of the church. So that's the last thing I want to say, beyond those sort of mechanical, financial pieces. An opportunity in an increasingly secularizing age to say that what a church is, other than the fact that we believe in Jesus Christ, and I was glad to see that Nomi Tutu confirm that the children think that Jesus is I'm not sure you do, but that Jesus is God, that we might associate a church as a place that does good in the world for others through refugee ministries, Midtown Assistance Center, Threads, and Covenant Communities daytime services. That's what we want people to associate with a church, those that aren't perhaps as interested in religion, but might come in through a metaphorical second front door to the life of our faith. But also that we can highlight our music program so we can have a space that is fit for purpose. One of the nation's leading music programs needs a space that is fit, that can have proper ventilation and lighting, and they have been managing in the space that they have for a while, particularly since the damage to Eggleston. It's an opportunity for us to uplift that program. Also an opportunity for us to have a common space, to open up more space that's accessible to all. In some ways, sometimes we talk about this invisible wall at the end of this corridor with all of those steps so that people who come to funerals or just in the life of the parish can access that corner of our block because it has that ability for them to get in and out and enjoy that. And then lastly, spaces for our staff who do so much work through All Saints day after day. It's a great opportunity for us to grow and to celebrate the vitality of this parish, the vitality of our programs, to make plans for the future financial vitality of this church, and open ourselves up, as we love to do through the history of this church, to this city. That's the nutshell of the master plan. I'm going to hand over now so you can get a little bit closer up to where we are today.
Thank you. So this is a master project schedule. I'm a project manager, so this is how I look at the world, is always in schedules. And we try to make these at about 100,000 feet view, because a detailed development schedule or any project schedule can have hundreds and hundreds of lines. We are literally planning out week by week by week what we're doing so that we can keep a long-term vision and process in order. Please don't get too hung up on any of the dates here, because the project is still very much TBD. And so the actual length and durations of things are going to change based on where we end up going. Simply putting this here so we can understand where we are today. So we're in the concept phase of a project, which is understanding vision. It's listening to all the various stakeholders. It's coming up with a program on what needs to happen and putting a concept or concepts together for discussion. And after that comes a capital campaign. And then after that comes actual full design. And so this is an iterative process. It's never a, this is what we're doing, period. We continue to listen, we continue to shape all the way through design. And once you get to a full design, that's at that point in time, we're handing a very large set of documents over to some builders, submitting for permits, and we're constructing. But we are in the very early stages of concept, headed towards a capital campaign. And a lot of this is what Perkins and Will is here to talk to you about today, which is the listening and part of that process.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Caitlin Blong. Myself and Nicole, as she mentioned earlier, with Perkins and Will, a design firm here in Midtown Atlanta. I also live in Midtown, and with our team, we've been very excited to learn about all of the work that All Saints has been doing to breathe life into this community. And our first part of this process was to really learn more about you all. This statement is something that's part of the master plan, as Simon was sharing a bit more about, and just this affirming this bold vision that you all have. And so part of this first part of the process is to really dig into that, to learn about your vision, to engage with you all, and know what the future of All Saints truly wants to be. These are things that we have learned about you all in the early part of the process, and you might see some of yourselves up here on this slide or future parts of the slide deck, really learning about the identity of All Saints, the collaborative investment that you all have in each other and your community, and your approach to what you do here in the church and for others. Again, these are things that we've learned about you all. All Saints is, a center of worship. We know that first and foremost, but it's also open and accessible. It's a community for hope, and that has become a theme and part of this engagement process. So you'll see this later on in our presentation. But all of these are things that are grounding us throughout this project, and we hope to continue to learn more about each of those as we get to know all of you more individually. My role is a project manager for Perkins and Will, so I'm working alongside Alex and Shannon here. There's a lot of schedules, there's a lot of details and things, but starting with that is a lot of research. We had a slide earlier that showed all of our team up on the screen. We have a lot of us here supporting this process, and we've been digging into the research of particularly the Eggleston building, but also this part of your campus since the beginning. We have been to Atlanta History Center now multiple times and sitting on the floor and looking through the archives, looking for lots of information about the church. You can see images of the front pages of a lot of these documents, things that you yourself have published from All Saints, or things like beloved past parishioners like Ed Daughtery, and learning about the landscape and parts of this community that are so important to you all. We have learned about oral histories. We've listened to things about the church. We have gone to meet with Atlanta History Center. We've gone to meet with the Georgia Trust. And these are just a few things that we've started early on in this process, and there will be many, many more. But wanted to share this early outlook with you all. This is a quote from Ed Daughtery, as you see on the screen. We all know this magnolia is very important to the church, and it's become a part of a series of things that we're looking at as what's central to what grounds you all to who you are as All Saints. So I wanted to share that again as part of this. Some of you may be familiar with this. We're aware that a lot of you have been part of this church for decades, and maybe your families have even decades before. So if I'm repeating something that you all know, I'm very sorry. But if it's new to you, this is great. And Simon may care about this the most, but our team is coming to care about this a lot, and we know that you all do as well. So we're taking a step back, all the way back to 1906, and looking at where the church began. If you didn't know, this was actually donated to All Saints from Mary Jane Peters, and she and her husband were quite philanthropists in the city and part of the development of a lot of the growth of Atlanta as a whole. And so just that's wonderful to think about in the beginning, that you all started this church on donated land. The beautiful sanctuary was built first, followed by Eggleston in 1917, and Eggleston has gone through a series of renovations we'll talk about in a bit more detail from that time, starting in 1946 on up into the 80s. And so we'll go through a little bit of detail here of what we've learned. Speaking of the history of the block, this is where we started early in the day. You can see the All Saints Church and Chapel there in 1906. And the Eggleston building following in 1917. At this time, the southwest corner of the block, which is now where the core ministries are, was actually residential, which is fascinating to us. It wasn't until later that changed. Here's some photographs of what the church was like early on, courtesy of Atlanta History Center and some of the All Saints archives. You can see the middle photo here is from Eggleston Hall. As it was built and constructed in 1917, you can see the audience space here, what was the stage as the center part of Eggleston, and what that looked like adjacent to the church at that time. In the 40s, we started with a lot of change, right? You can see that Eggleston was renovated first in 46. The central part of the stage was actually removed at that time, as well as a partial enclosure was completed on the upper level. When the building was first built, it was actually called the Eggleston Sunday School Building, and it was intended as part of what's called this Akron plan, where the shape that you see now is all the Sunday school classrooms that were around the central area and the stage. And some of you have told us that you even attended events that were maybe dances and things in that center space. In the 40s, that started to change. And then in the 56, a decade later, the Parish House was built right behind it. It wasn't connected to it as it is today, but this was the first step in really starting to develop the campus. In the 70s, the beloved canopy in front of the Magnolia followed, and then things started to change on the other end of the block with the commercial properties. You can see some images here. It's hard to read with the scans, but this is some of the changes of infilling the floor and changing the walls in Eggleston, what that canopy looked like when it was constructed. And look at these cars here in front of Parish House when that was built. Pretty cool. So rounding out here, you can see a lot of development from 1990s forward, some more renovations of Parish House. This is when we started connecting across. The new chapel was built, Tate Hall was built, and of course the Pritchett Center, where a lot of your children are right now, was built. You can see some images here requiring the remainder of that space. And here in 2014, this room that we're in right now. So as part of this look back through time, we have started also doing several assessments on the project on the campus, particularly on the Eggleston Hall building. Our team will be delivering later in April, as Simon mentioned, a little more detail on this, but we have started really digging into the building and its processes. We have done an assessment on the structural elements of the building, on the envelope, that's the facade components. We've done an architectural review, a code and life safety review, things that you all know are struggles for the building, like stairs and things like that. We've started to study that, the plumbing counts, energy codes, everything to look at getting this building up to speed. We've studied the site and the landscape. We've spoken to our friends with the Garden Guild. We started to look at how this whole building has come to be and the elements that make it what it is now. One of the best parts of this process was our team completed a Matterport scan, which if it will play here. This is a 3D scanning technology that allows us to really learn about the environments that we're in. And apologies if it makes you dizzy. But this is you walking in on a typical Sunday. You're coming through, you're landing up in the Eggleston building. You might go up the stair into the center space here. And so you can see what we're doing is actually just walking around in the part of the building. But what this allows us to do is to have a digital record of what the space is now. It allows us to cast measurements, to go back in even when we're not here on site and see things, to ask questions, to look at it with our teams and review. And then this will be something for you all that you're able to have as part of your archives here at All Saints. So this was just a taste of what our team has learned so far about the building. I'm going to pass this over to Nicole, who's going to tell us a little bit more about how we have engaged with you all so far in the process.
Thank you. So as Caitlin mentioned, well, first of all, I should never try to remember dates. That's why everybody was so lucky to have their dates on the screen. But the building is such an important part of how things work, but the people and how those processes unfold is really what I'll be talking to you about. We have had the privilege of meeting with all of these groups here, and not only meeting with these different teams, but also visiting the different sites and locations, and really trying to understand, what does a welcoming experience look like? Who are we serving? Who are you serving? And so we really appreciate the time that we've been given to meet with these different teams multiple times. So you're seeing the vestry meetings, staff programming meetings. We've met with Threads, MAC, Covenant Community. Caitlin was lucky enough to meet with the Garden Guild. We've been have meetings with the music ministry, Canterbury Court, and then we are here today. So thank you very much. One of the things that we really love to do to kick off a project is really understand aspirationally, what are we trying to do with a project and a place? And so we ask some really big questions, but we also ask questions about how is a space going to work? So you're seeing a very engaged community here for our first kickoff meeting. So it's questions and inspirational images, and we had a lot of activity and engagement. So this is the very first kickoff meeting we had. And then we felt it was important to really hone in on certain aspects of each of those individual separate meetings that we started to talk to. So here you're seeing the staff, and I love this picture because everything that we heard when we met with every single group was we want people to feel welcome here, that these are open doors for everyone, no matter which aspect of the project we're working on. So a place where people can rest, stay a while, and leave better than when they arrived. We were very inspired by that comment. And I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see that you have a team that's really focused on making All Saints, or continuing to keep All Saints the way that you all are, with a welcoming, hospitable community. The next team that we got to meet with was the music ministry. So here, a desire for a more welcoming and expressive environment. We know that music is such a big part of who you all are, and how are we going to carry that forward? So really inspired by some aspirational thoughts from the music team. And then we start to get into the core ministries. So one of the first ones that we visited was Threads with Marcia and her team. And there were some really beautiful things that came out of that meeting. We were able to see the volunteers coming in, getting ready to serve the community. And one thing that really resonated with our team was when Marcia said, I just want people to have a moment to breathe, exhale, and have a thought that brings hope. Like, that was so inspiring for us. So not only was it her words, but then we were also able to look and see, how is that space working? What all do you do? We hear about it, but we uncovered some additional things that we hadn't necessarily thought about when we first started talking. So this back and forth of meeting, hearing the people words, and then also really engaging with the environment to see how we can push that forward. So this is Threads. And then we spoke with Covenant Community and also visited that site as well here. And so Tamika shared with us a vision of communal care and security that says, welcome home. You're seeing some of the different facilities that they use in that space. And so we were listening to, what are the celebrations that happen? Where are the quiet moments that need to happen? What does it look like for somebody to come in and feel welcome in this space? So this is just a little glimpse into what that ministry looks like. And then we visited MAC. And a lot of different space types here, and Savannah was gracious enough to walk us through all aspects of that space. And she said, we meet people where they are to be seen and heard. We recognize that much like a church where you have people that have been in the faith for such a long time, and then you have people that are just learning, we felt like her comment here really resonated with kind of how a typical church community is welcoming different people at whatever level they're at. So you're seeing the food here. And then you're seeing some workspace and the welcome experience there. With the refugee ministries, we heard some inspiring words from the team when we had our all-hands meeting. So the space should be welcoming and feel safe and secure for all that we are serving. And I think that you can just see the pictures here speak for themselves on really the welcoming environment that you all are providing for this ministry. And then Caitlin got to speak with the Garden Guild.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that I want to join the Garden Guild. We had a great time learning from these ladies, some of whom are in the room and they're quoted here on the screen. We learned a lot about just how much the landscape of All Saints is truly pivotal to who you all are. And so we're going to continue to embed that as part of our process, even though we're maybe looking sort of buildings and architecture, we're also looking at all of those spaces in between.
We also got the opportunity to visit with the Canterbury Court. This one was, are you reading all of the things? This actually is why we really, we wanted to capture the things that were said in that room, because we really started to hear some great stories of the history of the church. They range from, I was hoping that the floor wouldn't fall in when we were meeting, to I haven't been able to get into the building in a decade, to I went to Sunday school and I remember the beautiful chaos, that the building was filled with children and now it's offices, but it would be wonderful to reactivate. But we heard things about the Sunday school, what that experience was to, I really wish I could get into these buildings now. They're not very accessible. And everything in between. And the next one, this one, when our team heard this, we were like, we could just see ourselves going back here. But All Saints has always been a social place. I remember the dances with Georgia Tech and Agnes Scott. I met my wife in Eggleston Hall, and then as soon as that came out, we heard a lot of people met their significant others in this place. And that just, we were thrilled when we were able to be a part of this project. But when you hear things like this, it just gives you such a sense of, I cannot wait to see what we can do next. We just feel like, most of us aren't a part of this community, but we want to be. I'm going to church after this today. So these things were really inspiring when we were meeting with your different teams, and it is very obvious that it is an inclusive community that wants to, continue to do great things here in Atlanta.
So before we have a little bit of time for questions, I want to just share about some next steps that that you can experience. So next month we'll have a couple of forums in here, basically following the annual meeting. So it's on the annual meeting, I think it's the 12th to the 19th and the 26th. So those 2 Sundays we'll have an opportunity to hear the conditions assessment of the Eggleston building. And then the sort of next steps that come out of that. I wanted to make sure before we move to questions to Meg Fogel's there, member of the vestry, is co-chairing this part of our process, the Eggleston Task Force. Please do reach out to Meg. Please do reach out. There are members of the task force here on the front row. They're taking that front. Melanie is there. So if you see a member of the task force, you see somebody that you saw on the screen, I recognize that person. A vestry member with a red tag. Frankly, anybody you can pull aside. We want to hear from you. We want to, and it's hard to have a thorough conversation in the midst of a large hall, and not everybody feels comfortable doing that. But there is a great opportunity to do so. And I want to give thanks for all of the parishioners who are giving so much of their time to this project. So we do have time for a few questions before we move to the second service this morning.
Thank you. If you raise your hand, I'll come to you with the microphone, and we'll go from there.
I think Stephen at the back was first. Oh, Sheffield. Okay, then Stephen.
Excuse me while I whip this out. Thank y'all. Since this is not a debate, it's a forum, I thought I'd just read a statement and just be done with it, and say my piece and sit down. This is on behalf of my wife and myself. Eggleston Hall is more than a building. It's a physical record of Atlanta's civic, architectural, and religious history, and an integral part of All Saints Gothic Revival campus and our identity and collective memory. This building is both beautiful and important to the history and landscape of the parish in Atlanta. Equating the desire of the parish to focus on ministries with the need for a new building is a false equivalence. The leadership of the church is treating a speculative future that is likely years away to justify an irreversible present action. Much work needs to be done to find the space we need for our ministries within our existing campus. This is the most expensive and destructive and irreversible path, and I do not believe that the parish has been adequately consulted on the question of whether to tear down Eggleston Hall. The church already has in hands from Norfolk Southern Settlement the lion's share of the funds needed to repair the issues in Eggleston, caused by the destruction of the headquarters next door. The church also has a detailed plan prepared by Lord Aiken Sargent to address these issues and make those repairs. It's all possible. I do believe a capital campaign to fix our deferred maintenance on the church and enhancements to improve Eggleston, including its accessibility, will be needed. Any such campaign would be a fraction of what we need to tear down the building and build a much larger structure. Finally, tearing down an existing building and replacing it with a new one is the worst environmental option. No matter how efficient the new building, you will never recover the damage to the environment caused by putting the rubble of a historic structure in a landfill and building a new nonprofit office building. Now, for those of you who are lost as to why we would destroy the integrity of our campus and who wish to read more and more detailed analysis and keep up with the press, please check out the website, friendsofegglestonhall.org, and sign up for our communications. And remember, Eggleston has one G. On April 1 at 5:30 and April 6 at 2 o'clock, the Georgia Trust is hosting information sessions at Rhodes Hall about why it placed Eggleston Hall as the one Atlanta site on its annual Places in Peril designation last month. All relevant local and national preservation organizations are aligned in the importance of Eggleston Hall. Now it's time to make our opinions known. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just before Stephen has a chance to speak, thank you, Sheffield. And there'll be an opportunity to hear about the conditions assessment of Eggleston at next month's meeting. So we welcome all of that input. Certainly, if anybody has a view to share, we would love to hear it, and I would love to hear that directly from you. So my office door is always open. Stephen.
Well, I wasn't planning on following that, but I will certainly acknowledge everybody's opinion, because mine is certainly different than a lot of people's. But in general, all I wanted to say was I appreciate the thought and the effort and the time pre-COVID and since COVID. I've been here since 23, and so I feel like I'm very connected, very informed, so I appreciate the process of this, and I appreciate the long-term vision of things that, include people who have not always been here, for 50 years or whatever, and things will change and people will change and so on. Conditions will change, but it looks like we're heading in the right direction. So I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. I think Ellen was...
I also appreciate all the work that has been going on about this. My only concern is whether or not we're viewing Eggleston in a bubble, in a silo, and we do have other buildings on the property. I understand the master plan. I understand we want to get the core ministries off of that. I also served 2 terms on the vestry, and I know that Eggleston is a mess and falling down. So I hope someone is creatively looking at Eggleston to re-envision it as to what capabilities it could serve without necessarily addressing everything that we are trying